Welcome to Scandinavian Art Histories ArtTV. Today we continue with Art of the Ancient Aegean Part 2. Prepared by Dr. Jill Adams.
The Mycenaean or Helladic culture. Archaeologists use the term Helladic, from Hellas, the Greek name for Greece, to designate the Aegean Bronze Age on mainland Greece. The Helladic period extends from about 3000 to 1000 BCE, concurrent with Cycladic and Minoan cultures. In the early part of the Aegean Bronze Age, Greek-speaking peoples, probably from the northwest, moved on to the mainland. They brought with them advanced techniques for metalworking, ceramics, and architectural design, and they displaced the local Neolithic culture. Later in the Aegean Bronze Age, the people of the mainland city of Mycenae rose to power and extended their influence into the Aegean islands as well. Helladic architecture. Mycenaean architecture developed in distinct ways from that of the Minoans. Mycenaeans built fortified strongholds called citadels to protect the palaces of their rulers. These palaces contained a characteristic main or great room called a megaron that was axial in plan. The Mycenaeans also buried their dead in magnificent vaulted tombs, round in floor plan and crafted of cut stone. Mycenae. Later Greek writers called the wall complex of Mycenae the home of Agamemnon, legendary Greek king and leader of the Greek army that conquered the great city of Troy, as described in Homer's epic poem, the Iliad. The site was occupied from the Neolithic period to around 1050 BCE. Even today, the monumental gateway to the citadel at Mycenae is an impressive reminder of the importance of the city. The walls were rebuilt 3 times, circa 1340 BCE, circa 1250 BCE, and circa 1200 BCE, each time stronger than the last and enclosing more space. The second wall, of circa 1250 BCE, enclosed the grave circle and was pierced by 2 gates, the monumental Lion Gate on the west and a smaller secondary rear gate on the northeast side. The final walls were extended about 1200 BCE to protect the water supply, an underground cistern. These walls were about 25 feet thick and nearly 30 feet high. The drywall masonry is known as Cyclopean because it was believed that only the enormous Cyclops, legendary one-eyed giants, could have moved such massive stones. As in the Near Eastern citadels, the Lion Gate was provided with guardian figures, which stand above the door rather than to the sides in the door jambs. From this gate, the great ramp led up the hillside, past the grave circle, to the courtyard for the building occupying the highest point in the center of the city, which may have been the residence of a ruler. From the courtyard, one entered a porch, a vestibule, and finally the megaron, which seems to be the intended destination, in contrast to Minoan complexes, where the courtyard itself seems to be the destination. A typical megaron had a central hearth surrounded by 4 large columns that supported the ceiling. The roof above the hearth was probably raised to admit light and air and permit smoke to escape. Some architectural historians think that the megaron eventually came to be associated with royalty. The later Greeks adapted its form when building temples, which they saw as earthly palaces for their gods. Pylos. The rulers of Mycenae fortified their city, but the people of Pylos in the extreme southwest of the Peloponnese perhaps felt that their more remote and defensible location made them less vulnerable to attack. This seems not to have been the case, for within a century of its construction, in circa 1340 BCE, the palace at Pylos was destroyed by fires, apparently set during the violent upheavals that brought about the collapse of Mycenae itself. The architectural complex at Pylos was built on a raised site without fortifications, and it was organized around a special area that included an archive, storerooms, workshops, and a megaron for communal gatherings that focused on feasting. Set behind a porch and vestibule facing the courtyard, the Pylos Megaron was a magnificent display of architectural and decorative skill. Every inch was painted: floors, ceilings, beams, and door frames with brightly colored abstract designs, and walls with paintings of large mythical animals and highly stylized plant and landscape forms. The floor was finished with plaster painted with imitations of stone and tile patterns. There was a spot in the Megaron where priests and priestesses poured libations to a deity from a ceremonial rhyton, fostering communication between the people of Pylos and their gods. Clay tablets found in the ruins of the palace include an inventory of its elegant furnishings. The listing on one tablet reads, "One ebony chair with golden back decorated with birds, and a footstool decorated with ivory pomegranates. One ebony chair with ivory back carved with a pair of finials and with a man's figure, and heifers. One footstool, ebony, inlaid with ivory and pomegranates." Mycenaean tombs. Shaft graves. Tombs were given much greater prominence in the Helladic culture of the mainland than they were by the Minoans, and ultimately they became the most architecturally sophisticated monuments of the entire Aegean Bronze Age. The earliest burials were in shaft graves, vertical pits 20 to 25 feet deep. In Mycenae, the graves of important people were enclosed in a circle of standing stone slabs. In these graves, the ruling families laid out their dead in opulent dress and jewelry and surrounded them with ceremonial weapons, gold and silver wares, and other articles indicative of their status, wealth, and power. Among the 30 pounds of gold objects archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann found in the grave shafts of Mycenae were 5 funerary masks, and he identified one of these golden treasures as the face of Agamemnon, commander-in-chief of the Greek forces in Homer's account of the Trojan War. We now know this mask has nothing to do with the heroes of the Trojan War, since the Mycenae graves are about 300 years older than Schliemann believed, and the burial practices they display were different from those described by Homer. Also found in these shaft graves were a gold lion's head rhyton and a bronze dagger blade decorated with inlaid scenes, further attesting to the wealth of the Mycenaean ruling elite. To form the decoration of daggers like this, Mycenaean artists cut shapes out of different colored metals, copper, silver, and gold, inlaid them in the bronze blade, and then added fine details in niello. In Homer's Iliad, the poet describes similar decoration on Agamemnon's armor and Achilles' shield. The blade shown here depicts a lion attacking a deer with 4 more terrified animals in full flight. Like the bull in the Minoan fresco, the animals spring forward in the flying gallop pose to indicate speed and energy. Tholos tombs. By about 1600 BCE, members of the elite class on the mainland had begun building large, above-ground burial places, commonly referred to as Tholos tombs, popularly known as beehive tombs because of their rounded, conical shape. More than 100 such tombs have been found, 9 of them in the vicinity of Mycenae. Possibly the most impressive is the so-called Treasury of Atreus, which dates from about 1300 to 1200 BCE. A walled passageway through the earthen mound covering the tomb, about 114 feet long and 20 feet wide and open to the sky, led to the entrance, which was 34 feet high, with a door 16.5 feet high faced with bronze plaques. On either side of the entrance were upward tapering columns carved from green serpentine porphyry, a kind of rock found near Sparta and incised with decoration. The section above the lintel had smaller engaged columns on each side, and the relieving triangle was disguised behind a red and green engraved marble panel. The main tomb chamber is a circular room, 47.5 feet in diameter and 43 feet high. It is roofed with a corbel vault built up in regular courses or layers of ashlar, precisely cut blocks of stone, smoothly leaning inward and carefully calculated to meet in a single capstone, the topmost stone that joins sides and completes the structure at the peak. Covered with earth, the tomb became a conical hill. It was a remarkable engineering feat. Ceramic arts. In the final phase of the Helladic Bronze Age, Mycenaean potters created highly refined ceramics. A large crater, a bowl for mixing water and wine, used both in feasts and as grave markers, is an example of the technically superior wares being produced on the Greek mainland between 1300 and 1100 BCE. Decorations could be highly stylized, like the scene of marching men on the warrior crater. On the side shown here, a woman at the far left bids farewell to a group of helmeted men marching off to the right with lances and large shields. The vibrant energy of the harvester rhyton, or the vaphio cup, has changed to the regular rhythm inspired by the tramping feet of disciplined warriors. The only indication of the woman's emotion is the gesture of an arm raised to her head, a symbol of mourning. The men are seemingly interchangeable parts in a rigidly disciplined war machine. The succeeding centuries, between about 1100 and 900 BCE, were a time of transformation in the Aegean, marked by less political, economic, and artistic complexity and control. A new culture was forming, one that looked back on the exploits of the Helladic warrior kings as the glories of a heroic age, while setting the stage for a new Greek civilization. The object speaks, the Lion Gate. One of the most imposing survivals from the Helladic age is the gate to the city of Mycenae. The gate is today a simple opening, but its importance is indicated by the very material of the flanking walls, a conglomerate stone that can be polished to glistening multicolors. A corbelled relieving arch above the lintel forms a triangle filled with a limestone panel bearing a grand heraldic composition, guardian beasts flanking a single Minoan column that swells upward to a large, bulbous capital. The archival photograph shows a group posing jauntily outside the gate. Visible is Heinrich Schliemann, standing at the left of the gate, and his wife and partner in archaeology, Sophia, sitting at the right. Schliemann had already discovered Troy, and when he turned his attention to Mycenae in 1876, he unearthed graves containing rich treasures, including gold masks. The grave circle he excavated lay just inside the Lion Gate. The Lion Gate has been the subject of much speculation in recent years. What are the animals? What does the architectural feature mean? How is the imagery to be interpreted? The beasts supporting and defending the column are magnificent supple creatures rearing up on hind legs. They once must have faced the visitor, but today only the attachment holes indicate the presence of their heads. What were they? Lions or lionesses? One scholar points out that since the beasts have neither teats nor penises, it is impossible to say. The beasts do not even have to be felines. They could have had eagle heads, which would make them griffins, in which case, should they not also have wings? They could have had human heads, and that would turn them into sphinxes. Pausanias, a Greek traveler who visited Mycenae in the 2nd century CE, described a gate guarded by lions. Did he see the now missing heads? Did the object not only speak, but roar? Mixed media sculpture, ivory and gold, marble and wood, was common. One could imagine that if the creatures had the heads of lions, the heads might have resembled the gold rhyton in the form of a lion that Schliemann excavated from a nearby shaft grave. Such heads would have gleamed and glowered at the visitor. And if the stone sculpture was painted, as most was, the gold would not have seemed out of place. A metaphor for power, the lions rest their feet on Mycenaean altars. Between them stands the mysterious column, also on an altar base. What does this composition mean? Scholars do not agree. Is it a temple, a palace, the entire city, or the god of the place. The column and capital support a lintel or architrave, which in turn supports the butt ends of logs forming the rafters of the horizontal roof. So the most likely theory is that the structure is the symbol of a palace or a temple. But some scholars suggest that by extension it becomes the symbol of a king or a deity. If so, the imagery of the lion gate, with its combination of guardian beasts and divine or royal palace, signifies the legitimate power of the ruler of Mycenae.